What's good, guys? Welcome back to Small Talk and Head-to-Head Fantasy Basketball. All right, today we're going to go over another buy low candidates, and I am joined by Anson. What's good, my boy?
What's good, guys? We're updating you guys on players that might not have been performing well to start off the season, or maybe they just had a couple bad games recently. These are players that maybe someone in your league is holding them. They're seeing a whole bunch of duds on their game log, wants to trade him. This is your opportunity to kind of scoop in and get him for a steal.
Yep. Let's get started with our first candidate. All right, we got Jaren Jackson Jr. All right, so obviously his current rank right now is 41. And if you guys didn't know, today he also had a bad game. So I think that would make people that are holding Jaren a little uneasy. They might want to trade him because he has been doing that well. But this is obviously just like a bad stretch for Jaren, right? We just look at his stats real quick, right? Last year he averaged 40 fantasy points per game, 50% field goal, 35% from three blocks a game. And this year, as of right now, no John Morant. You remember that he's been really struggling, right? 13 fantasy points a game, 30% field goal, 18% from the three. Like these numbers it's just so low that you're just like, okay, this is definitely just a bad stretch, right? But if someone doesn't understand, they don't look at the numbers, they're like, oh my God, he sucks. I'm gonna trade him. Throw him a little trade for him, try to see if you can get him for cheap, right? And if you guys have him, right, then just hold on to him, right? Because like we're talking about, right, these are buy low candidates. If you have any of these guys, just play the long game, just wait a little bit, right? Hopefully this video helps you ease your nerves a little bit.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense for him to be worse as a primary scorer or just not having John Moran in the court. He should be producing more. He's actually not ranked 41. He's ranked 41 before today's game. He's probably dropped even lower than that. So his game log looks really bad. He only had 8 fantasy points today versus the Lakers. He's been shooting terribly. With the Lakers, with the Lakers game, he shot 3 for 16. So this is just not how he's going to perform. If you just translate the 50% from the field, the the 35% from three, and also the fact that he's averaging less than 1/5 of the blocks he usually gets per game, he should easily be averaging maybe 46 to 47 fantasy points since he's averaged 41 last year with John Morant.
Yeah, I agree with you. So this is just definitely a bad stretch for him if you guys do have him. If like we said already, if someone's unhappy with Jaren, try to get him on your team. All right. Let's move on from Jaren. All right, we have Zion Williamson. Oh man, I think this guy's pretty controversial. I don't know about what you feel about Zion Anson. I think a lot of people aren't sure how the Pelicans are wanting to play Zion. Like we see his minutes being limited. But when he does play 36 minutes, he's dropping 50 fantasy points, right? But the thing is that he isn't playing 36 minutes every single night. Right now, CJ being out definitely helps him out a lot, but we're still not seeing that jump in the minutes yet. I think Pelicans are having a little PTSD from trying to play him every single game, and they're just being very, very cautious with Zion. Um, I understand where people who are fantasy managers are coming in saying, okay, well, that's not good for fantasy because if they're limiting his minutes, he's not going to be able to play as much and do as well, right? We just look at his stats. This year, he's only doing 32 fantasy points per game. Last year, he's doing 43. The idea, though, is that he is playing games. He is playing games now, which is good. But I understand where people were saying, comparing him to what he was doing last year. But even as of right now, I think he is slowly going to get more minutes, more playing time as he continues to show that he is being able to stay healthy. Right, he is still sitting back to backs out or just due to rest purposes, which could be a little alarming for some of you guys. But if you don't have Zion and someone else in your league has Zion, they're complaining about him, or you think they're not happy with Zion, just send them a trade. Be like, hey, who you want for Zion, right? And if they're willing to give him up for something cheap, then I think you can get him, right?
Yeah, right now would be ideal to if you are interested in taking the risk of Zion Williamson, because it is definitely a risk. You can definitely buy low on him and still not get your value back with someone like Zion. But if you do want to take the risk, this is the best value you're gonna get. He's shooting 10% less from the field than he usually does. Maybe he's still ramping up. He hasn't been on a basketball court for a long time before his first game of the season, which was like 10 games ago, 11 games ago. So he's still kind of adjusting. All his shots are basically layups. Not a lot of jump shots from him. So he shouldn't be shooting 10% less than what he usually does. So I think eventually he'll start to kind of get his legs back into it, kind of get used to the pace of the game again. He's been away from the game for a long time. And especially with CJ out, he's just kind of set up to score the ball more. And eventually he will be getting more minutes as the Pelicans are looking to compete. They're more of a buying team than a selling team. So I'm assuming the Pelicans want to make a playoff push, maybe try to get to the second round, possibly. But yeah, I think Zion will eventually play. It's just if just know that even if you get him at a pretty good discount, there's a chance that it just might not pay off only because he does have a pretty bad injury history.
Yeah. So, like we said, these are just recommendations and suggestions. You don't have to go out there and start trying to get every one of these players that you don't have. Like, okay, they're saying to buy low. Let me try to get them. Let me try to get them. All right, because you have to understand risk management, right? Like, okay, if you're getting Zion, you don't want to have other injury prone players on your team because that will eventually just even hurt you even more if you just grab Zion and then you still have injury prone players on your team. All right, but so these are just recommendations. Remember to understand that you guys don't go out there and just try to get every one of these guys. All right, but let's move on from Zion. Right, we have Cade Cunningham. Oh man, I think this guy's another interesting player. Right, we had high expectations. I'm gonna say we because I think Anson and I we both kind of put Cade pretty high, and as of right now, he's definitely not playing out. But if you just look at his stats really quick, it's not like it's really bad. I'm not even like he's averaging 32 fantasy points per game for the last 7 days, 5 turnovers a game. Very unlike Cade. 40% from field goal, 30% from three. Like I mean, I think pretty sure I can say we both think that Cade is a very, very buy low. Like these numbers are just not sustainable for Cade, right? We know what he can do. And I feel like this is just kind of him getting back into the game. I want to give him another like month or so to really, really get back into the field game, be able to play better and just play make more, right? Because right now, 5 turnovers a game is crazy, is insane. And he has really bad shooting woes as of right now. So if you guys want to get Cade, I'd highly recommend you guys to try and push for Cade, unless you guys have like 5 guards on your team, right? And just let Cade go, or maybe trade one of your guards for Cade.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on Cade Cunningham. He hasn't been performing well. We haven't seen too much of Cade performing well for fantasy, to be honest. So we're mainly projecting. However, as you see on the screen, as Alan mentioned, 5 turnovers per game. He's never done that. Like this 10 game sample size of averaging 5 turnovers. His rookie year 3.7, sophomore year 3.3. That's 2 additional turnovers that he should have. That's 4 more fantasy points per game. He's also shooting the worst he has ever shot from the field. That's including his rookie year. I just don't think that he's not improving from the field. Same thing with 29.6. That's worse than his rookie year from three. So we've seen last year, right before he got injured, he was really improving, kind of felt more comfortable. I think it's gonna take him a little bit more time because he, like Zion, he has been out the game for a while, but I'm sure once he figures everything out, he's gonna be back to regular. He's gonna be probably averaging close to 40 fantasy points per game.
Yep. I can definitely see that for Cade. Moving on from Cade, we have James Harden. Obviously, he got what he wanted. Now he's on the Clippers, right? But as of right now, he's not performing well, right? Clippers are losing every single game, and there's a lot of media spotlight on Harden, right? But let's just take a quick look at what he's been doing in the games, right? Right now, he's averaging 30 fantasy points a game. Compared last year, he was almost averaging 50, right? Obviously, he's still settling into his role. He's only taking 9 field goal attempts a game. That's like a bench player, a role player, right? 4.7 assists. These are very unlike Harden numbers, and I feel like it's still where he's trying to adapt to the system, play towards the system, right? But eventually I feel like he's going to get back into his groove where he's going to be shooting maybe like 15, 16 attempts a game. 9, 8 assists a game. So I think his numbers are definitely going to be a lot higher when he gets back into groove of things, right? As of right now, very, very like very, very bad numbers, right? If you guys want to get Harden, I think you guys can definitely try to send some trades for him. But I think Harden's one of those players that a lot of fantasy managers will probably opt to just keep, right? Just because they know what Harden can do. So I think it'll be a little harder to try to trade for Harden.
Yeah, the stats that Alan has mentioned, the ones that you see on your screen, they're pretty horrific for James Harden. We've never seen anything like that from Harden. So maybe it's able to convince someone to trade away Harden for a player outside of the top 50. So if you could give away a top 50 player, try to do it. He has never shot 9 field goal attempted per game since his OKC days when he was coming off the bench. Even his last season with OKC, he shot 10 field goal attempts per game. So he's never done that. You could be like, okay, James Harden's falling off. His offensive game isn't there anymore. But we've been saying that for the past couple seasons, right? Ever since he got traded from the Rockets, he just hasn't been that scoring leader. We've seen the league leader in scoring, but he's still able to make up for that by switching his game and facilitating more. I don't think that part of his game will drop off. Like he doesn't need too much athleticism to, keep his core vision. We've seen guys like Chris Paul, like older guys, still be able to keep up their assist numbers. So with Harden last season, 10.7, 10.5. The season before that, 10.2 his last season with Brooklyn. This is when he was already labeled kind of like he's washed, right? So and he this is like after his athleticism kind of declined. So I don't think there's any major concerns of his assist numbers dropping off by more than 50%, 60%. So I expect assist numbers to rise, even if he's on a team with a pretty good ball handler and playmaker in Russell Westbrook. I still don't expect his assist to be cut in more than half.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Harden can like a lot of his fantasy points come from his assists. And as long as he's able to get those numbers up and he's able to get to the free throw line really well, I think he was easily a very, very solid, like a 20 and 10. I would say 20 and 8 player where he gets 20 points, 8 assists, and at a very high level where he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. So overall, I think 30 fantasy points per game is not going to stick with him, in the long run. Moving on from Harden, we got Jordan Poole. Man, Jordan Poole is a very interesting player, I would say. I know a lot of people that drafted him are very unhappy, and I'm biased because I drafted Jordan Poole in one of my leagues, and he not performing for me. But as of right now, he's averaging 20 fantasy points a game. 2024. As of right now, like total average 27, last 720. Last year, I was averaging out 30 fantasy points a game, and I thought he would take a bigger step in the Washington Wizards. However, he hasn't really shown any of that. Um, but I think Jordan Poole is still one of those players where he could become a top 60, top 50 player if he just fixes his games a little bit, be more disciplined and how he plays the game. Because I'm pretty sure you guys see all these videos where he's just dribbling behind his back, trying to pull up a shot from like way down deep and just clank, like it's really bad, right? So as long as I feel like if he's able to become more disciplined and really pick and choose his shots and distribute the ball better, I think he's really a very, very good fantasy player. I see he could easily get up to like 36, 37 fantasy points per game. It's just that as of right now, it looks very unlikely because that is like a 10 fantasy point jump. But I think it's definitely possible, right? I don't want to rule it out saying, oh, this is where he's at, this is where JP's at, that's it. Right. But I think Jordan Poole could potentially do a lot better. How much better? I'm not really sure yet. I want to see a little bit more before I, label him as okay, this guy is a bust or he's gonna be this good, right?
I mean, this guy's definitely a bust if you followed what ESPN have been telling you. If you drafted him, or we warned you, that's all I'm gonna say. If you watched our videos, we warned you. But if you drafted him anywhere where ESPN projected him in the top 20s, you kind of, you kind of deserve it, man. I don't know what else to say. Like Alan said, he shouldn't be doing this bad. He should be better. But definitely we don't know how much better. Um, Definitely not top 20 better, but even with all that being said, he should be potentially top 60. If you think about the fact that he is the primary scoring option, it's between him and Kuzma. And if he's a top scoring option on a NBA team, there's only 30 NBA teams, right? So it just makes sense for him to be a top 60 fantasy player if he's gonna be a primary option on one of the 30 teams. So I expect him to be a top 60 player at the very least. Um but yeah, he just has to be more efficient. He's also not shooting the ball as much as he did in the Warriors, which may come as a surprise to a lot of people because the Warriors had, better players than the Washington Wizards, and he's taking one less shot a game. He's taking one less three a game. ESPN projected him to shoot a lot more than he did last year, which I expected to be honest. But I think the Washington Wizard coach might just be kind of just not really wanting to give him that many touches. I think he did earn the respect of the Warriors or of Steve Kerr because he performed in the playoffs and he was kind of this unexpected, unsung hero that helped him get a championship. So he kind of got away with a little bit in the Warriors, but Washington doesn't seem to be playing him as much. He's not playing that many minutes per game. He's actually playing more. He's actually playing less minutes than he did last year with the Warriors.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with everything you just said there. It might be the coaching issue. I don't know what they're planning to make some adjustments, but yeah, they need to make some adjustments if Jordan Poole wants to like perform a lot better. Right. Let's move on from JP. Right. We got Chris Middleton. Okay, yeah, this guy I've been seeing him a lot more on the like in trade talks, right? People are very unsure what Chris Middleton's gonna do, right? They thought he was completely healthy coming back, and now he's only playing like 19 minutes a game. Right, he's averaging 23 fantasy points per game, and if we just take a look at his little stats, obviously the sample size are lower since he hasn't been playing too many games and hasn't been playing too many minutes, right? He's has a little dip in his efficiency, which I think it will definitely come back up. And I feel like as long as he has the minutes and he's able to get more minutes, he's gonna be a very decent fantasy player. I think he should be must roster in 12-man leagues for sure. But I mean, I've seen some on my other friends league where they're playing 10-man, 8-man, where he's on a free agency. And it's like if he's on a free agency, you might as well grab him and hold on for the long term because 19 minutes a game for Chris Middleton, who is arguably probably the third option behind like Dame or Giannis, right? It doesn't make sense why he should be on a free agency or where he's only playing 19 minutes and he's averaging this little. So if you have someone in your league that have Chris Middleton, they don't want to have Chris Middleton anymore, send him a trade for it, give him like a free agency play, like give him like Clay Thompson, one of those guys, or Ben Simmons if you can sell him high right now for Chris Middleton. Like I would rather have Chris Middleton than Ben Simmons in my opinion, right? But as of right now, Chris Middleton is underperforming. Right, I think he is definitely a very buy low candidate that if you can get your hands on, just be okay with understanding like okay, he's gonna get his minutes back slowly, right? And if you're as long as you understand that, I think Chris Middleton is a very solid hold.
Yeah, not too much to say outside of what you already said. I mean, he's the Bucks' third best player. He should be getting back to his regular or at least just the 30 minutes per game. They're just kind of easing him back because he's been dealing with repetitive injuries. So uh, before the trade deadline mark, he should be getting 30 minutes per game. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't.
Yep. And I think that should wrap up the video. Right. I don't think there's anybody else after Chris Middleton here. There are still other few candidates, like some honorable mentions. Like, for example, I'll throw one out there. Julius Randle. Right. The thing is, Julius Randle kind of has been picking it up right now. Right. He's been performing a lot better. So a lot more people will probably tend to just say, okay, maybe that beginning was just a slow start and he's picking back up. So we didn't want to throw him in this video here. But the rest of these guys in this video are definitely buy lows that some or even a lot of you guys are could trade for or even just understand like, okay, these guys are buy lows. I'm gonna hold on to them for a little bit and just see how they improve over the upcoming weeks, right? I think that's wrap up the video. Anything else you want to add, Anson?
Yeah, just drop a comment if you guys agree or disagree. You guys think we missed out on any players? Go ahead, drop it down in the comments. We love to hear from you guys. We'll be dropping probably Sell High soon, and then we'll be keeping you guys updated weekly with more fantasy content. So make sure you guys follow, subscribe to dominate your league.
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll see you guys on our next video. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Peace.
Peace.